on this Sisterhood Shabbat, in which we honor the memory of Frances Katz, I have to tell you that I saw Frances Katz before I met her. I was a new rabbinic intern, and I remember walking through Ziegler Sanctuary and seeing this impeccably dressed woman. I see lots of nods. A lavender suit, a beautifully matched modest hat, lace gloves, one of the most elegant people I've ever encountered. And she walked up to me and proceeded to ask, "At medaberet ivrit?" Do you speak Hebrew? Ken, thank you. That's exactly what I said. I responded, Ken, betach, of course. And then she continued, Bruchim habayim, welcome to Sinai. I'm Frances Katz. I know better now, but I certainly knew then in that moment I was meeting a Sinai temple icon. Because as a past Sisterhood president, Frances Katz taught us how to elevate the moment, how to infuse holiness in a space that would otherwise feel mundane. It's why I'm so pleased that immediately after the conclusion of this service, we are dedicating a menorah in her and her beloved Sydney's memory, a gift from their family. Because as many of you know, during the nights of Hanukkah, we are taught to ma'alin ba'kodesh. We're taught to add a candle each night of the holiday so that we ascend, so that we rise up, so that we increase in sanctity and sacredness. And while so many of us here in this congregation knew Frances as a frequent davener in the sanctuary, I think she was best known for her role as the lady in the gift shop. I can't imagine how many of you came to Frances during those years. She was the consummate volunteer, and she would help you pick out a perfect talit for a young adult becoming a b'nai mitzvah, help you select the exact kiddush cup you were meant to have under the chuppah, point you in the right direction for the mezuzah, for your new home. And of course, she would remind you about the sale in Seder plates when Pesach was coming. Our Akiba and religious school students would run down the halls to see what kinds of snacks Frances would put out for that day. You know, my office door is almost right across from the gift shop, just a little bit down. And so I always pass the gift shop when I go into my office door. So Frances would see me daily, and she'd say to me, Rabbi Guzik, I have something on sale for you. And she would nudge me into the gift shop, and she would always gift me beautiful kippot whenever she could. And I really apologize, because somehow everything was on sale for me. And so I feel kind of terrible that I've probably taken hundreds and hundreds of dollars from Sisterhood, because the kippah or the books or the candles, sometimes they were on sale, sometimes they were free. All of a sudden, they're for free. But I have to imagine that I wasn't the only clergy person or congregant who had that kind of interaction with Frances. Because at the end of the day, she wanted to make sure that we were creating Jewish homes. She wanted to infuse each corner of our kitchen, our living room, our dining rooms with a sense of Kedusha, a sense of holiness and majesty and beauty. And I know, like many of you, even if I would say, you know, Frances, I'm going to put the kippah on right now, or I'm going to take the candles home, you don't have to do anything with it, she would insist on wrapping up that gift so meticulously with the most beautiful wrapping paper and beautiful ribbon cut with such precision, because she wanted us to know that she cared. I remember thinking many times then, this is a righteous woman who has helped us step forward to walk on a higher plane. And when I think about the essence of our sisterhood, perhaps it is exactly that. We are meant to live righteous lives in our own unique ways, modeling for the next generation. And it was so beautiful to see so many of the next generation on our bima, modeling for that generation what it means to bring holiness into a world so desperate in need of elevation. We can choose to walk this world with our eyes drawn down to the ground, or we can live our lives like Francis, eyes turned towards the hallways, eyes seeking ways to gather others in, whether it's selling snacks to students or encouraging someone to beautify their Shabbat table. That was Frances Katz, intentionally adding her elegance, her vibrancy, her light, and her love. And so how appropriate it is that it is this very time of year in which we learn about the women of the Exodus. Says the Talmud, Bishar Nashim Sidkaniyot. By the merit of the righteous women, that generation was worthy to be redeemed from Egypt. It's the women. The Talmud goes on to speak about how the daughters of Israel refused to be disheartened or dismayed when Pharaoh ordered that their husbands work day and night. And then the Talmud goes on to speak about the midwives who refused to adhere to Pharaoh's orders to kill the Hebrew slaves' newborn sons. The courage, the bravery, the resilience exhibited all by women, women who seemed to know it's upon us. It's upon us to ensure the deliverance to the promised land. But I'm drawn to one particular scene in which Miriam is center stage. The Torah reads, Miriam, the prophetess, sister of Aaron, took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women went out with their tambourines and with dances. And the Mechilta, a book of Midrash, a book of rabbinic stories and interpretation, asks the question that I think is so often asked during this story. Really? So the Hebrew slaves had to leave with almost nothing but the clothes on their back, but Miriam thought to bring a timbrel. Of all of the things she could have saved in the moment, did she really need a tambourine? And the Midrash responds, how did the Israelites have tambourines in the desert? The righteous women of that generation were certain that God would perform miracles for them, and so they prepared tambourines or timbrels and dances while still in Egypt. These women had faith in their story, that our story would not end with chains of slavery in Egypt. These women knew that even if they had to change the story themselves, freedom would arrive. Righteous women then ensuring that future generations would walk on holy land. Jewish educator Sarah Rudolph asks us to think about the following text from the Zohar, a famous Kabbalistic text. It reads, come and see. There were two women in the world who praise God in an exceptional way. Who are these women? Devorah and Hannah. Rudolph expounds on the text. Now, these two women, both pointed out, are completely different from each other. One is described as a judge, a prophetess, loud, vocal, outspoken. And the other is described as soft, pouring out her heart to God, but barely through a whisper. But each woman used their voice in their own way in order to move forward the story of the Jewish people. I stand here this morning on this bima on Sisterhood Shabbat thinking of the women of Sisterhood, thinking of the women past and present who have used and continue to use their unique voices in a particular and collective way to move forward the story of Sinai Temple, but also use their voices to move forward the story of Jewish women, of Jewish people everywhere. Whether we think about Frances Katz this morning, who used her voice to lift us up, or Miriam dancing through the sea of reeds with her timbrel, it's clear. Bishar Nashim Sikaniyot, it's because of the righteous woman we will be redeemed. Our mothers that came before us, they had faith then. And it's up to us to have faith in ourselves. Just like our ancestors did so many years ago, our children will hear our voices and, God willing, be inspired to sing, to dance, and one day march into the promised land. Shabbat Shalom.